Hi, this is Lorna, and this is part 2 of how to make a fire-breathing dragon. The things you're going to need today are some acrylic paint, a couple of brushes. I like to have a round and a flat brush, but if you only have one or the other, it's totally fine. I have a paper plate for putting my acrylics on, but you're welcome to use a reusable palette or some little containers if you want to save your paint. You need at least the primary colors. I have red, yellow, blue, and then you're also going to need white. This is a milky white. You can use a regular white or a titanium white if you have that. I did choose the phthalo blue because that will give you a better green than using ultramarine blue, but you can still make green with ultramarine blue. So the colors I'm going to be doing are reds, oranges, and yellows for the flames, and then I'm going to do classic green for the dragon. If you don't want to mix your paint colors, you're welcome to use colors straight from the tube. I just have a yellow ochre, I have a vermilion, a light olive green, phthalo green, and I have a turquoise green. So if you don't want to mix colors to make these, you're welcome to just use them straight out of the tube. I may use some out of the tube, and then I may also, I'm going to show you how to mix a few colors. So I have my colors here. To make my orange, I'm going to mix my yellow and my red, and to make my green, I'm going to mix my yellow and my blue. Pretty simple. We can go over some color theory at a later video, but if you want to know a lot more about color theory, there is a video on our channel by our art aide Sophia, and it's a really great beginning class for how to mix colors and a little bit of color theory. So you also need water to rinse your brush. So let's get started. I'm actually going to start with my my flames first. So I'm going to take my red. Some of these tube paints are brand new, so I have to get rid of the little seal. And I'm just going to put a little bit of red in two places because I want some pure red, and then I also want some orange. Most sets come with a yellow ochre in them. Yellow ochre is a great way to make a muted orange versus a like neon orange. So if you want a more muted tone, use the yellow ochre instead of any yellow that you have. Sometimes the kits come with primary yellow or lemon yellow. This is actually lemon yellow. So I'm gonna do some yellow next to the red and some yellow on its own. You can make yellow ochre by adding just the tiniest amount of brown to your yellow. So I'm actually going to do a little bit of yellow ochre as well on the side. And you can see that's just a more muted yellow. Yellow ochre is probably one of my favorite colors to work with because it just pairs so beautifully. It's nice and opaque. Lemon yellow can sometimes be a little bit transparent and can be a little bit frustrating to work with if you're trying to get some nice rich colors. All right, so I'm just gonna pop a little bit of white here and there. And you can set up your palette however is more convenient for you. And then I'm gonna take some of my orange and pop that. That one's brand new. That on there as well. Okay, so now to mix these colors, you can use a palette knife. I'm just going to use my brush, and I'm going to use the brush that I'm going to be using to paint with. So I'm actually using, fumbled the brush. Okay, so I'm just going to be using this nice round tip, and I'm just going to mix these two colors together. We're going to get a nice orange. And I like to mix until it's consistently one color. I don't know if it's really reading on camera so much, but this is definitely orange and not red anymore. Might lighten that a bit with some white. That's why I put that little blob next to it. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to start with my darkest color first. So I'm going to start with my vermilion, which is this red color over here. I'm not cleaning my brush because I'm making flames. And flames are not solid colors. You just kind of want some wispy colors. And again, I'm going to, just like when I draw my flames, when I paint my flames, I like to paint them in the direction they go. So if it's a campfire down here and then the flames going up, they go up. And it's easier for my wrist to start from the bottom and curve up than it is for it to curve down. You can see I kind of tighten up and run out of space. So I like to go in the direction. So I just flopped my dragon around there. Make sure you can see my paint. So I'm just gonna start by going over my flames on the outside. So basically tracing my line art. With the red. And actually I think that brush is a bit big, so I'm switching to a smaller one. And I'm just gonna go in and bring it up to the points. I don't really care if it's super opaque in one go because I'm gonna be building up lots of color, but also flames are kind of transparent. If you look at a fire, you might be able to see through it. And you can go in and fill in if you want, but I'm gonna be filling in with some lighter colors because typically flames are brightest where they're the hottest, which is usually at the center of the flame. And any pencil lines that show after I'm done with this, I can erase. So you could go slower and just trace your lines perfectly if you want. But for me, flames they're wild. They cannot be contained. They're not something that should look pretty perfect. But you could do a stylized flame, and that would be really cool too. So I'm just kind of letting my paint drag off to the tips so that it's getting kind of transparent. Then I'm going to go in with my orange and layer that next to my red. Alright, so I'm just gonna kind of wipe off the majority of paint there. Again, not rinsing my brush, but you're welcome to. Go in with that orange that I made. And I'm just gonna put this next to the red. In some areas. So I'm not going over all of it, just in some of the thicker, darker areas. And filling those flames in. Okay, so now that the majority of my flames are filled in, I am going to give my brush a rinse to get some of that darker color out. And then I'm going to go in with my lighter orange. I am gonna lighten it a bit more because I feel like it's too similar to the vermilion. So I'm just adding a little bit of white. If you don't want it to be a creamy orange, you can add yellow to lighten it and it'll make it more of a yellow orange, which would be cool too. Okay, so now even though my paint is still wet, I don't mind. You could let it dry if you want clear lines, but I want my paints to mix, so I'm working wet. So I'm just gonna go in the center and brush on, and this is gonna give us some more dimension. Just brushing on in the center of those flames. And you can even do a few little orange flames here and there if you want. I'm gonna do some orange kind of going in his mouth. Need to wipe off some of that. It looks like the flames are coming out. Just a little bit. Okay, so I think the orange is looking pretty good. Now I need to go in with some highlights. So you can do that in a few ways. I'm just rinsing my brush out here. So I'm just going to add a little bit of white, but I can also make a even lighter yellow by adding white to it. So I'm gonna go in with this one first. I'm gonna put a little bit in his mouth. And then I'm just gonna hit the centers of these flames. And I'm just kind of dabbing it. Into the center. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my cat sees a squirrel and she's chirping. It's pretty cute. Okay, so I have my yellow put on there and it's looking very flamey. It's on fire. Now I just want to go in with a little bit of white and really pop up the centers. I'm not mixing it with any color because I want it to be really, really bright, and there's already wet paint down. And I'm just kind of finessing it to make it just a little bit smoother and blending some of those colors together. And there's so many ways that people make flames. This is just how I do it. When I paint digitally, I do it a completely different way than this. I tend to use some of the FX brushes, like the flame brush or the smoke brush, or even just a bright, going back into a little bit of the yellow to tone down some of those bright areas. Okay, so I feel like the flames are looking pretty good. So now I want to move over to the dragon. So I'm gonna flip it around again. If you want, you can do some flames down at the bottom or put something that it's charring. Maybe he's lighting a barbecue. I don't know what your dragon is doing. So then I need to make my green. So what I would do is I would take my blue, and put some of that on. And then I need to take yellow. And I want kind of a light green, so I'm gonna take quite a bit of yellow. So I'm taking my square brush and just mixing those together. And you have green. If you want to lighten this, you just add some white, or you can add some more yellow to make it a more lime green. But because I have those colors already pre-made, I'm just going to use my made mix here as my base layer, and then I'm going to go in and highlight with some of my lighter colors. Alright, it's looking pretty good, pretty consistent. That phthalo green gives you a really pretty green. Okay, so I think I want his belly to be a lighter color and his back to be a darker color, because that's pretty classic. So I'm just gonna take my brush and fill in. And here I need to be a little bit more controlled with my brush strokes. Really get in there. The phthalo green is a little bit transparent, so you may need to build this up in a few layers, and that's okay. If you were to mix the yellow ochre in here, it would be a little bit more opaque, which is one of the main reasons why I like using yellow ochre. So what I like to do is I like to lay down a base color and then take my brush and smooth it out. So you'll see me kind of skipping around a bit. So I have my base color in, and you can see it's really streaky. So what I want to do is I want to take my brush and just smooth out all of those streaks. I'm just doing that with gentle pressure. And then once it starts to dry, you want to kind of leave it alone, otherwise you're going to pull more streaks through it. You're going to do the opposite of what you wanted to do in the first place. This is going to be covered with some dots and things like that for scales, so you don't have to worry about getting this base layer too perfect, but you definitely want to try and get as many streaks out as possible. So I'm just going to go in between all of my little horns and things. That I've drawn. And you can go in and do different colors for this. You could do like a rainbow background. There really is no limit. So that one is looking good. Get rid of all of my streaks. I can tell this one when it dries, I'm going to need to do another coat. I don't want to forget its tail, but I also don't want to drag my fingers through it, so I'm going to be doing that part last. Acrylic is pretty great because I can cover up some areas and then go back in and have a nice opaque. So these teeth, I'm covering up the bottom of them with this green paint so that I don't have to go in between each tooth. But then I can take my white acrylic paint and just draw those back in. If you're worried about losing your lines or forgetting where your lines were, a great way is to take a picture of your line art or even scan your line art, and then go ahead and start your painting. And that way you can use you can use your line art as a reference. Okay, so I have my dragon filled in. I'm just gonna do his tail over here. My tail is pretty simple. I have it kind of going around my painting like a frame. Okay, so now I need to decide what colors I want his legs and his wings to be. And again, I'm gonna go with green, but I'm gonna do a little bit lighter green here, and I'm gonna have a dark green. I'll probably do the same dark green for his back talon there. Just so that it looks pushed away. This little back talon. So this one, I just want to add some yellow to that. So I'm actually going to go in with my yellow ochre that I have on the side here and just mix it straight into my green. If you're worried about needing this green again, you can make a mix of it on the side. But I'm not concerned about needing it again. All right, so I have a nice muted version of that green. A little bit of yellow in there. If you use a palette knife to mix your colors, you're gonna, one, keep your paintbrushes a little bit more alive because you won't be using those. And you can kind of scrape up into a little pile, which is nice. Alright, it's doing the base color on this little leg down here. I like to paint with the curves of whatever I'm painting, so you'll see that I'm doing some round brush strokes here. And overlapping that dark green is fine because this is going to be in front of his body. This big chunky leg. And then his wings. And this back wing is actually going to be even darker. So I'll choose a different color for that. Okay, so I have my base colors laid in for that part. Now I'm just gonna clean a couple of my brushes so I can go in for his tummy and his horns and his wings. So for his stomach, I'm gonna be using a yellow. Actually, you know what, this color looks good. So to make this, you wanna add a little bit more yellow to that green that you already have there. Or you can just use the paint right out of the tube. Usually you can get these little tubes on sale, which is why I have those quite often. You get a good variety, because even if I know how to mix colors, sometimes it's just, you're not feeling it today. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go in and paint my stomach. A very sheer color. Okay, so now that his stomach is green, I think it's starting to pop quite a bit more. And then I want to do his wing this color as well. Okay. So again, I'm following my brush strokes. Okay, so for his horns, I think I'm gonna do those yellow as well as his little talons. And then for this back wing, I wanna do a mix of this blue with this green and make it nice and dark, almost like it's in shadow. So it's gonna be like a turquoise. Okay, and I also want to add some of that below where his leg is joined and below where his wing would be shadowed. Add some shadows to his tail down here. Put his little leg a little bit further back by making it a little darker. It's gonna have a shadow under his chin. And he would have a shadow back behind here. Just a little light one. So now it is time to do your details, and the details are really what is gonna make your dragon look. So you're just building up color, and it always looks a bit messy until you get to all your final details, like your highlights and your shadows and adding little scales. And the more that you add and the more time that you spend perfecting it, the cooler your dragon is gonna be. So I'm just gonna take some of this yellow, pop in the base. And this one's actually going to be further back, so I'm just going to add a little bit of orange in there. Okay, so now for his stomach, what you want to do is you want to define some of these areas just a little bit more. And you want to maybe add some scales. So to add scales, I'm going to do a lighter color, and I'm just going to do dot painting using the back of my brush. I do have a couple tutorials on how to do dot painting. So I'm just gonna add some phthalo to this lime green, or not phthalo, I'm sorry, yellow ochre. Gonna mix it. And it's gonna give me a nice kind of mustardy green. Okay, now for scales, what I want to do is I want to thin down this paint just a little bit, and you can do that using a medium or water. I'm just going to be using water. Has a little bit of an orange tint because it's the water I've been cleaning with, but you could use fresh water if you're concerned. So you're just looking for a consistency that no longer holds its shape. Like you see my paint over here, the white and the red have little peaks in them. I want to make sure that this one has no little peaks and that they kind of just dissipate on their own. And you can see it's nice and thin. Okay, so now I'm just going to take the end of my brush, dip it in, and then do some dots. You can do as many dots or as few dots as you want to do. You can do a few colors of dots and overlap them, which would be really cool. Don't forget your tail. I'm doing a few dots with one dip because as you keep going, they'll get smaller and smaller, and it gives you some dot variety. But you could switch to a smaller brush if you wanted. Adding a little fan kind of at the bottom there. I think that's pretty cool. For the wings, I'm just doing a stripe of this color. And then I need to do the dots on his leg. I think having a variance of different colors of dots would be really cool for this. Some little lines. Oh, I forgot to do the claws on his toes. Go in there with my yellow. Okay, so the next step I want to do is his belly. And I'm just gonna go in with pure yellow for that, mixed with some white. So I'm gonna mix my yellow and my white together. Maybe a little bit of that green, 'cause it's So now I want to go around the tops and just fill in, because we want the darker part to be towards the bottom of the screen. And that's going to make it look like it's dark and curving under. You could even add another darker line, which I think I'll do underneath. So I'm just going up until the bottom of that excuse me, scale. And I would recommend taking your time, smoothing out all your paint, but if I did that, it would be a very long tutorial. So I am just speed painting. All right, I'm gonna do some highlights within his wings with that same color. And I'm gonna go in for the background of his eye. As well. And his teeth are gonna be this color. So I don't think dragons would have, you know, sparkling crest white teeth. But maybe yours has good dental hygiene. I don't know. Teeth. Maybe he's got some highlights on his claws down here. Just adding a little bit more dimension into his leg. Adding some more dots. Okay, so now you want to do a little bit of shadow. So I'm going to go back in with this darker green that I have over here. And I'm just going to go in just very lightly below his scales. A little bit in the back of his leg here, so it looks like it's turning. And again, the more details that you add, really the better it's gonna get. I'm gonna go in for his pupil here, just a little bit of that dark color. And then I think I want his eyeball, the actual part of his eye, to be this orange. Areas back here, some of the vermilion. So really, it's just layering your paint, adding details where you think they are gonna look really cool. And what's really cool to you is, you know, subjective, so it's gonna be up to you what you like the best. Add a little bit of red in here for some more contrast. Okay, I think that's pretty cool. And then for my background, I would do I'd let this completely dry and do a little bit of watercolor, maybe black watercolor that looks like smoke. That could be really cool. There's lots of different options you can do for your background. You could go in and paint it with acrylic. You could do the acrylic beforehand and then build up your dragon and flames on top. My plan is to do some watercolor for the background just to make it a nice wash, and then I don't have to worry about being super precise. So here is the final painted dragon. Let me get my trash out of the way here. You could let this dry and add some white highlights to this, or black shadows. There's all sorts of things that you can do to embellish this even further. But I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you give painting a dragon a try. If you want to learn how to draw this, there is a video up for that. Thanks for watching. Bye!